Steven Crowder makes an appeal for you to stop paying attention to the big conservative sites that never seem to get banned, even though they're demonized by many on the left. So we'll talk about that. I've got a couple of clips that other creators have found of places that they want you to look at, and I've got a clip of a place that I want you to look at as you assess this independently and decide whether this is a big thing or if this is another way for Crowder to grift and promote his new business. But we'll talk about that and some of the problems that I have with Conservative Inc. in and of themselves. So that will be our top story today after finance. In other news, the owner of BlackRock, or a member of BlackRock, I should say, says ESG opponents are trying to call ESG satanic, and, well, it really may be, but we'll go over that. I'll explain what ESG is and why they may be right to say that it is satanic. I can tell you right off the bat, no matter what, it is still no good for the country. Derek Chauvin has filed an appeal for his conviction in the George Floyd murder, actually asking the courts to void the conviction entirely and start from scratch. So we'll go over some of that and what happens there. And Greta Thunberg gets caught staging her arrest. The video is there, and, well, it does not look like they're in any hurry to try and get her out of there, so we'll watch that. It is going to be all this and more. I got more votes than Kevin McCarthy. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jay Edgar. Welcome to Contemporary, your evening news. We have got a fair amount to go over here today, and really, honestly, this is going to be a very video-heavy show. So, if you guys got some popcorn, we won't be having as much music behind us, but we'll be watching a lot of stuff here, specifically the Crowder thing. Now, this caught my attention right away last night while we were still on Contemporary, and I bookmarked the video to watch last night, and then didn't get to it last night because I was watching Porch Boys, and I passed out pretty much as soon as Porch Boys was over last night. Like, they went on until 10:30. I get up at 5, so pretty much as soon as they were done and off the air, it was click the button, silence my tablet, and I was dead. I was on the pillow. But I got up this morning almost immediately, and Styx had a video about it, and I still hadn't seen a Crowder video. So the first thing I did as soon as I got home from work today is I got up and I listened to the full Crowder video, which I have the full Crowder video on screen, and I'll link that in both the chat and in the Discord as well to see what you guys think. I have questions about about what's happening here with this. I don't buy this at face value, but there's a good chance that I might email Crowder and I might see what it is that he has to say about what's going on here. I've said horrible things about him. I can't imagine that he would actually want to have me on his little network that it looks like he's probably going to come back and try and launch. But I want to hear the guy out. I want to hear what it is that he has to say. And I have queued up. I know I've got Crowder's selection, his minute selection, what he thinks is the most important. I've actually got a selection from Anomaly on what he thinks is the most important part of this little speech here, and then I've got the part queued up that I think is the most important of this big speech here. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about the debt ceiling, obviously, because, well, tomorrow's the day. I got some video there, some stuff about ESG, which I just found out about what that is today, and, well, I can see that, and the Chauvin appeal. That's a big one that's coming up here, so we'll talk about what's happening with that. It's going to be all this and more over here on Contemporary. Before we get started, let's make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Brit if you're over on Twitter. Go check out Mr. Behavior if you like video games over on the Twitch side. And go check out Harvey McLeod, too. She's doing a playthrough of one of my favorite games. And the No Gimmicks podcast. I did not get his question retweeted out last night, but do remember he does answer listener questions. I'd say probably once every couple months here. So go check him out and follow him on Twitter if you want to get your questions answered as well. And with that, let's go ahead and get started into the news of the day. And we will start with our finance. Looking at the Dow, which dumped out 613 points throughout the day in what was very much a steady decline. It started out going up. You can see where it started out above the previous close, but it fell off into another sheer drop off here. Now, One of the things that's funny to say is that all the financial experts are saying, this is the worst day of the year. There have only been 12 other days to compare it to. We're in the beginning of the year, guys. Of course, any major significant drop is going to be the worst day of the year right now. And if we have another significant drop tomorrow, that'll be the worst day of the year. It's not like we're talking about this in November. The worst day of the year. It's January 18th. Come on. But that's what they're saying. The Dow dropping out 613.89 points, or 1.81%, to 33,296.96. Let's look at your Bitcoin, which is also on a down day compared to yesterday. The Bitcoin down $20,695 even, dropping $440 even, or 2.8%. And it got much lower. It was able to claw its way back, but it dropped out to 2542, so it lost another 150 points at one point in the day before settling itself back up at the 2695 mark. So you're not doing as well today on Bitcoin as you were yesterday, but you're still doing better than we were at the beginning of the year when it was constantly 16, 17, flirting with 15,000 as we went. So that's what we see for that. Gas prices around the Madison area are largely unchanged. 309 going up on the quick trip on the north side. On the northeast side, 315 quick trip entering the Isthmus, 306 on the Amoco on the Isthmus, 293 leaving on Highway 30 at that quick trip. The BP on the Beltline leaving at 309. The quick trip on the west side is at 315. The other quick trip on the west side is at 293. That is going down 18 versus going up the Beltline. And the Speedway is also at 315. So mostly unchanged. We're mostly sitting at the same place that we have been, and that's where we're sitting at with that. Let's see what IBD has to say. We may skip Market Watch because we do have a lot to go over, but let's see what we have here from Investors Business Daily. Dow loses key level. St. Louis Fed chief sees 5.25% rate. Tesla's Musk faces new litigation. SLB and Netflix on tap. From Vidya Ramakrishnan. The Dow gave up early gains and traded at session lows into Wednesday's closing bell. The blue chip index fell nearly 2%, taking it below the 50-day moving average. The S&P, which had gained 0.5% early, was down 1.5% at 4. The Nasdaq lost over 1%. Both indices are testing their 50-day lines. Cooling inflation is being viewed as a mixed signal in the rapidly slowing economy. The small cap Russell 2000 also declined by about 1.5%. The Innovator IBD 50 ETF posted a 0.8% loss on Wednesday's trading. Volume on the New York Stock Exchange and on the Nasdaq was higher versus the same time on Tuesday. On Wednesday, the International Energy Agency said it expects record demand for oil. As China moves past its COVID lockdown, still crude oil fell more than 1% to trade at $79.53 a barrel. The yield on the 10-year Treasury note fell 16 basis points to 3.37 to a 4-month low. There are a few reasons behind that. SLB is in a buy zone from a buy point of 56.14. Earnings are due Friday. ONIAC is in a buy zone from a flat base, but is falling back towards the 68.27 buy point. Axon is building a cup base with a buy point of 193.95. It has fallen 1% and may offer a handle and lower entry in coming sessions. Medpace is approaching a 253.82 buy point in consolidation. Axon and Medpace are IBD leaderboard stocks, and Medpace gained 1.5% in today's session. Chucky Schwab fell 2.5% after earnings mixed analyst expectations for the fourth quarter. The Westlake, California-based brokerage netted revenue of $5.49 billion, and earnings of 97 cents per share. For the year, revenue grew 12% to $20.8 billion, while earnings booked at $3.50 a share. Schwab is on the IBD 50. So, a few things that were moving and shaking throughout the day today. Johnson & Johnson is also on pace for a 7-day losing streak and a total loss of over 5% because you guys just had to go and get your Pfizer jab. Shares of Tesla dove 2% as securities fraud trial begins in San Francisco this week. The litigation involves Tesla CEO Elon Musk's tweet from 2018 about taking the EV company private. The tweet is alleged to have triggered stock option swings that hurt investors. There's a risk to investing. Alright, let's talk a bit about what happened today on the markets from MarketWatch. Dow drops over 600 points post worst day of the year after weak economic data. Hawkish Fed remarks erase inflation cheer. From Isabel Wang and Francis Yu. Indices finished sharply lower on Wednesday with both the Dow and the S&P booking their worst day in over a month. After data on falling retail sales in the holiday shopping season raised concerns that consumer spending and economic growth are losing momentum as the Federal Reserve raises interest rates. The S&P was off 62.11 points or 1.6% to end at 39,2886. The Dow, as we looked at earlier, dropped 1.81% to 33,296.96. The Nasdaq lost 138.1 points or 1.2%, ending at 10,957.01. Nasdaq always swings a lot harder than the other two indices, I've noticed. Although the S&P was the big loser today. On Tuesday, the Dow fell 392 points or 1.14% to 33,911, and the S&P fell 8 points to 39,91. The Nasdaq went up 16 points to 11,095. U.S. economic data on Wednesday showed the wholesale prices slid 0.5% in December, the biggest decline since April of 2020 when the Pinko-Pox pandemic began, adding to evidence that inflation, though still high, has started to ease. However, December retail sales dropped 1.1%, contracting for the second month in a row. Economists polled by the Wall Street Journal forecasted a decline of 1%. Retail sales are a big part of consumer spending and could offer clues about the strength of the economy. No crap, I've been saying this since the very beginning. Since the first time we started talking about finance and what was happening with the inflation. People are not buying their big ticket items. I shared the story when I first moved in here. When I was unpacking stuff, my TV fell and broke. The 32-inch Samsung that I used in my bedroom for pretty much the entire time we've been talking about this. It's always been in my bedroom as long as you guys have known me. Both at the place in southern Wisconsin and the place over here. That's my bedroom TV, and it fell and broke. And I thought about going out and buying a new one off the shelf off Best Buy just to keep back going again. Still debating doing that somewhere in the near future. But instead of doing that in the short term, I went out and spent $60 and bought one off the Facebook Marketplace. And a lot more people are doing that. Trading, selling, and doing that kind of thing, and even selling stuff off because they can't afford to replace things that are broken in their homes or feed themselves. God forbid they go out and buy something new right now. It's never going to be about the price of food. It's never going to be about the jobs and the wages, quote, going up even though they're not keeping up with inflation or anything. Where you're going to see it and where you're going to start seeing the problems, I said this since we started talking about inflation, was what people are going to do when they need to buy a video game system or a new phone or a TV or clothes for that matter. That's where it's going to start to hit the economy in the pocketbook, and that's where the problems are going to lie. Now, once again, a reminder that on top of all of the bad economic data that we're getting right now, we also have to contend with the fact that the U.S. and the people in the U.S., because of fear-mongering from the mainstream media, are preparing for a debt showdown and a possible default on the U.S. national debt, for whatever that is going to mean. And they don't know what it's going to mean. They know what NPR and ABC and CBS have told them is fear-mongering, but they have no idea what this is going to mean or what it's going to do with it because it's never happened. But we'll sit back and watch and we'll see the fear-mongering. We'll be talking about that a little bit later here. But first, I want to talk about Crowder. So, the video that I grabbed first was obviously the one that Crowder had put up on his Twitter, and I've got that sitting up in front of me. Now, this is a 1-minute segment of an approximately 28-minute segment that he put out earlier today, which I watched in its entirety. There was one part that triggered just a thought in my head of something that we do need to talk about with this, and why I don't know if this is sincere or not. I am considering writing the email out to Crowder. I want to hear him out. I'm out here with 300 subscribers. I don't know if he's even going to waste my time with me, or if he's going to try to make me the next Tim Pool, which, by the way, that guy's not grassroots either. Nobody in the mainstream is talking about this. Nobody on Conservative Inc. is talking about this. There's nothing about this on The Blaze. There's nothing about this on the Daily Wire. But this is something that we need to talk about. So in Crowder's speech, before we listen to what he had to say in 2 different clips, plus the clips that I've chosen, Crowder went on to explain the fact that many people in what he calls Big Con, to make the joke that it's a big con, what's something that I've called out numerous times before as Conservative Incorporated, is in bed with big tech, which is fairly obvious. Like, if you didn't know that, then you haven't been paying attention to the messages that these controlled oppo people are putting off. And I'm not going to name a lot of names, because I've got my suspicions. Crowder apparently has receipts, and he's not naming names either. But, I mean, in not naming names, I mean, we come on here daily, and, I mean, the names that are out there are somewhere on the wire that we'll never know. Like, again, what's going to stay in here in my head. And, man, I just have a conversation with a person named Charlie over this here. The names that are out there that we can't really mention. Oh, wait, what did Kirk say today earlier? Oh, wait, no, that has nothing to do with the news. I don't know. But a lot of this has been weighing on my mind. One of the big ones, especially conversations that I've had just both in and out, because you guys know that over the past year I've been dating. Nothing has really been serious, but I do remember talking about conservative outlets, and there was that girl Candace that I went out with. She wanted to talk just a bit about that. She was herself a little bit to the left, but we were at a place called Owens. And the conversation triggered out there as well. But we'll never know who any of these Conservative Incorporated types are out there who are in bed with the mainstream media. But it's out there. And I'm going to say right off the bat, I have levied this accusation. With what came out in this video, it's really hard for me to come out because I've levied this allegation against Crowder himself, being a former Fox News lackey, and then also somebody that's worked with Ben Shapiro, who a lot of people do suspect is on this list of people that he's talking about. And of course, you all know my feelings on our beanie-wearing friend, because I don't think he is grassroots either. Really, honestly, if documentation came out that Pool was being paid by Vice, I wouldn't be surprised. I am not going to say that, yes, Tim Pool is in bed with big tech. I'm just saying that if the Vice came out and said, oh no, Tim Pool's been on our payroll this whole time, I would just kind of yawn and say, okay, I wonder what the Packers are doing. But with this being said, I don't know. I really don't. So let's listen to this 1-minute clip that Crowder has picked out from his full spiel, which is, by the way, over here. And before I do anything, I'm going to grab this, copy this, and link this for you guys. I'm going to put this in the Discord as well. Drop that there. And I do encourage you to watch this in its entirety. I did. And listen to what it is that he has to say. But let's grab this minute clip first.
tech is in bed with big con. The people you thought, the people I thought were fighting for you, a lot of it has been a big con. Now, I'm specifically avoiding naming names or going after individuals in this video because I genuinely hope that those I'm addressing, and you know who you are, have a change of heart. Don't sign these contracts. I now know what you are signing out there. I have the luxury of not having to. Let me go through this. If any of the major platforms issues a content strike such that Crowder cannot be monetized on such platform, the fee will be reduced by 25%. And then another 20% of it happens on Apple. And then another 10% of it happens on Facebook. And then another 10% of it happens on Spotify. And then if you get a strike, meaning a suspension, another 20%. Just to drive it home, you get hit by a car, you have a sick day, you could lose $100,000 a day. This is what's sent out to everybody. Big tech is in bed with big con. The people you thought.
And Stephen in this, when he goes through this, he's bringing out the numbers of which he, in more than just a minute in this, he spent probably a good 5 minutes of his 27-minute spiel talking just about the numbers and the penalties that they're levying against you. And if any of this is true, if that's what they're talking about with this, I mean, that's when you sign these contracts, which I've had contracts come to me, even being a small creator, and I just delete the email. I've had people email me saying, hey, do you want to be a part of this? Do you want to be a part of this? And I do understand as well that I do want to come out and create a network like the kinds of things that Crowder is talking about. But I mean, for me, it's just going to be invite only. This is not going to be something, and it's. I do want to keep a very small group of creators on staff. If we can get this launched and we can get this on staff. And for me, it's more protecting them and keeping them away from people like the people that Stephen is describing in this. He also went out of his way to say that it wasn't the Blaze. That's not who he's referring to when he talks about this. Crowder having just recently left the Blaze himself. And there is some suspicion off of that where now that he has left the Blaze, this came out. I do wonder if there is something that needs to be confessed to with Glenn Beck or whatever it is that he's working on out there. So a lot more questions that have come out of this, and even again questioning whether or not this is a controlled oppo thing or whether this is something that Steven is doing genuinely. Anomaly grabbed a different clip, and now I haven't listened to Anomaly's clip, but given the caption, I kind of have an idea where he's going with it. Anomaly, Steven Crowder has woke up to the fact that many in right-wing media are actually working with the establishments they claim to be fighting. Don't make me have to provide receipts, he says. Let's listen.
But for the first time, I have to say that I believe many of those in charge in the right-leaning media are actually at odds with what's best for you, the viewer, the customer, and more importantly, the country. We here at Mug Club, we thought that we were all in this together, that we were fighting the media, entertainment, industrial complex. We thought that we were all genuinely taking it to big tech. But too many of those in charge of the big conservative platforms are verifiably in bed with them. Big tech is in bed with big con. The people you thought, the people I thought were fighting for you, a lot of it has been a big con. Now, I'm specifically avoiding naming names or going after individuals in this video because I genuinely hope that those I'm addressing, and you know who you are, have a change of heart. It's never too late to do the right thing. Guys, this is a genuine plea. We can all do better. We can all do better. It doesn't have to be this way. And please, don't make me have to provide receipts.
I'd like to see some of those receipts. I'm going to tell you flat out, I would like to see some of those receipts. There are a few names that were going through my head that, Dennis, stop texting me. And I'd pray not say what's going through my head and any of this, but I would love to see some of these receipts and see who is genuine and who's out there, and honestly, what proof that you have. Part of the problem that I have with this spiel, and again, I haven't heard what Beanie Boys had to say about it. I heard what Styx had to say about it. I'm really curious to see what it is that Benny Boy had to say about it. I haven't listened to that either. Those are three, especially given the fact that two of them are people I've suspected of being in this boat that he's talking about. But those are... I definitely want to see what Beanie Boy and Benny Boy have to say about this, the fact that this is out, and you know that they can't avoid this. I want to see the receipts. Otherwise, all you're doing, Stephen, is the same thing as when MSNBC or ABC comes out and say, an anonymous source says that this document is genuine, and they saw what they saw. Totally anonymous. But my BS detector also went off. So I queued this. Actually, I want to queue this back just a couple seconds more. So I queued this just before the 16-minute mark because, honestly, when I was listening to this, when I got to just about this mark in the video, I started to realize that this may, in and of itself, be a grift by itself. A way to come back out and try to snipe some of the up-and-comers and lock them into the contracts by scaring them away from going into contracts of other people that they love. So let's listen to this segment. I don't know how long I'm going to go with this. Probably 2 or 3 minutes. So we'll listen to maybe 2 or 3 minutes of this and see just what it is that he has to say about what he wants to come out and do now.
For me to stay and continue doing what I've been doing is to make sure that we all do. That we all do better. So to everyone out there who refuses to sign or is under the cloud of these maybe not entirely enforceable contracts, look, here's your signal. Water's warm here. I'll produce your show. We'll produce your show. If there are enough of you out there, I will transition Mug Club into a full-scale network with independent content creators who don't want to be locked into slave contracts. Look, I understand that business relationships sometimes fall through. People don't see eye to eye. I get that. But there is a way to structure these contracts and a network. There's a world in which contracts and a network exists where everyone benefits with some semblance of fairness, transparency. There's no need to be enslaved like this. If you're out there right now and you're making content work, on whatever scale that may be, there are levels to this game, I understand that. And you'd like to have some backup. You'd like to have some brothers, sisters, Z's and arms, some security without losing your shirt. Send your email to creators@louderwithcrowder.com and we'll talk. You want a partnership? Great. Can probably work something out. You want the security of being an employee? Could probably make that work too. There are many ways to skin this cat. And you know what? If Mug Club or whatever network it becomes isn't for you, if this isn't the right home for you, we have lawyers and representation who will negotiate your contract for you with anyone else out there at half the market rate. Why? Because...
Okay, before we get any further into this, if you are going into something where you want to actually make a small business LLC and make money off of doing YouTube videos, etc., and you don't have your own lawyer already, you do not need to be going into looking into these contracts. Oh, no. Yes, no, come out here. If you don't want to join us, then you can use our lawyers for half the price. Hey, no, you'll still be under my thumb. I'll send you out to the competition with my lawyers. How about that? Yeah, that doesn't sound shady as hell, does it?
Because I don't like this, and I'm going to end this. We all need to end this together. I have plenty of friends. I could use a few enemies. There is strength in numbers. And if you, watching right now, right now, if you want a network that you can truly call your own, I just ask that you enter in your email at stopbigcon.com. Entering in your email makes you a signatory. It's a statement that you want not just Mug Club, but you want a network that does better. So it's either time for Mug Club to go big or it's time for me to go home. I can't change this all by myself. I really can't. And frankly, swimming upstream with just this one show, it's a futile endeavor. So either Mug Club grows and you start setting the standard for this movement, we right this ship, or you know what, I'll go back to doing maybe occasional videos, stand up. I don't need to do this. It's that simple. My life would be less complicated. I just want you to think about this for a second. There's a reason that if you felt this way, let me put it this way, and I've heard feedback from you. If you feel in your gut that a lot of conservative content out there feels homogenous, feels sanitized, feels like they're missing some key points, there's a reason for that. There's a reason that you often find yourself asking, hey, I wonder why X won't talk about Y. And I now know any contract that I would have signed would have turned this into yet another softer radio show on video, littered with live reads for every sponsor that could be crammed into every single episode possible, devoid of the sketches, the change my mind type segments, the spontaneity, the levity that's made this show exactly what it is. Oh, and by the way, I was told would never work by the same powers that be.
All right. That's all we're going to listen to off this. Now, Stephen does also bring up another point, because a lot of these so-called conservative programs out there. Now, I will admit, before I go into that, I will admit to what I've done to try to make myself bigger, to try to appeal to a different audience. You guys remember what I used to be. I think it was less than a year ago. I think it was probably spring of last year when I decided, hey, I'm competing with the AM radio at the time slot that I was in at the time. I need to clean up my language because a lot of my audience, a lot of my potential audience has their kids in the car. So I need to stop punctuating everything that I feel about politicians with the F word. I get that I've gone onto the grip to try to make myself radio friendly, advertiser friendly, commercial friendly. I understand where some of the criticism can come to me on this. But what Stephen does hit right on this, aside from the fact that this really feels like a grip because he wants to go back and pluck creators that might go out to his competition or get them in contracts with his lawyers so they can't come back and directly compete against him. Hint, hint, grift, grift. Is that a lot of conservative media is more concerned with, frankly, appealing to the BoomerCon crowd. And there isn't a lot of place for the younger viewers. People even down in my age, and I'm pushing 40. There's not a lot of room and there's not a lot of content out there for them. It's just dry stuff telling you to praise one politician, just like the left-wing media does, and why the other people is evil and why you should be outraged. And a lot of these, and I've listened to some of these particular boomer cons that are out there. I've working in the industry that I've worked in for my entire adult life. I've met a lot of them, and just come out and say, "Oh, I heard that on that there Fox News that that Barack Obama, he is the Antichrist. We can't trust him." So I don't know where this ends. Again, I actually, just out of morbid curiosity, I'm going to email Stephen and see what he's got to say. Maybe he'll have all the fights and rainbows in the world and be able to make a better program and get me a producer who is not gay and is also not a stuffed skunk, which, by the way, I've got to bring producer Pepe out of the bedroom at some point so he can come back and sit on my dresser out here again. Because remember, when I started out here, I didn't have the dresser behind me, so I didn't have a place to decorate. You guys could still see all my moving boxes, in fact. Maybe we'll get the advertising budget and we'll launch the show to the moon. Or maybe I'll look down and see through the paperwork and the fine print that's coming from here and see this for the grift that it is. Alright, we have spent a obscene amount of time talking about this. For somebody who I don't particularly care for, but still himself might be correct. Let's talk about some of the other stuff that's going on around the world. We're going to move on and talk about ESG because of Davos from CNBC. Bank of America CEO says new ESG rules are needed to reboot capitalism. From Jenny Reed. And by the way, if a video of this popped up in somebody's Discord, I would probably be putting certain emotes underneath it. Bank of America Chief Executive Brian Moynihan said Wednesday that current efforts to produce a set of official global standards on ESG issues are vital to align capitalism with what society wants from it. Not really. That's not a free market. That's not capitalism. Asked by CNBC's Karen So at the World Economic Forum in Davos, where stakeholder capitalism needed a reboot through the creation of common standards for corporate disclosures, Moynihan said he was converted to the idea after seeing hundreds of companies sign up to the UN Sustainable Development Goals in 2017, followed by an ongoing debate over what concepts like sustainability actually mean and accusations of greenwashing. Without definition, without convergence, what you had is everybody defined in their own way. Somebody would think the issue is important, or this way to talk about it is important, he said. ESG, which stands for, by the way, environmental, social, and corporate governance initiatives, are increasingly discussed in corporate results and by senior business figures, though they have also proven controversial. Critics have included both those who claim they are a PR exercise and recently those who argue ESG investment funds will provide weaker returns. In 2020, Moynihan, who is the chair at WEF's International Business Council, and WEF founder and chair Klaus Schwab, worked with the Big Four accountants to create a set of common stakeholder metrics for companies to follow. He said it was now important to go to the official side and was supported the new International Sustainability Standards Board set up by nonprofits, the IFRS. On Wednesday's panel, IFRS Chair Erkki Liikanen said that since setting up the board, they had consolidated their work with that of other groups with niche expertise. And we're working on a final standard publication to be released in the middle of 2023. This is due to comprise a set of general, non-financial sustainability disclosure requirements for companies and set up specifically on climate. Liikanen said it would then need adoption and endorsement around the world. Moynihan also said it was crucial that sustainability and ethical standards became official and global, because of course they did. Because all of this is a way to try to set up the big global economy and the big club that you are not in. And hey, if you don't follow along with these environmental, social, and governance standards, guess what's not going to happen to your company? Guess what they're going to do? They're going to send out their little world police and shut you down. This is not capitalism in any stretch of the word. I know MSNBC tried to come back out and try to equate this all to it's all capitalism, and if people are going and they're talking against ESG, then they're talking against capitalism. MSNBC, you've been against capitalism for as long as I've known what your network is. And I'm sure that other than Likanen, there are a bunch of other people in the midst of this that have certain funny names that are pushing the strings on all of this. But what I can tell you is that if a governance board sets the standards, then that's not capital. They keep saying capitalism. That's not capitalism. That's a planned economy. That's socialism. Alright, what else do we have? From Fortune.com. Larry Fink, the face of ESG, says the attacks are now personal. For the first time in his career, they're trying to demonize issues. Of course they are. And by the way, of course, only the people who adhere to your specific issues are allowed to do business in your system, rather than letting the market decide. Interestingly enough, and I've talked about my feud with Matt Christensen before, but still reminding you that he is a vital source of information that you guys should be using. The only reason I don't use Matt Christensen as a source is because of basically what he did to me over the suicide prevention live stream. Otherwise, I'd probably be listening to Beauty and the Beta weekly still to this day. Or at least the one-off videos. But I remember way back when I first started doing one-off videos of my own, I utilized a clip of one of his videos reminding everybody about the hardware store owner in Tennessee, in rural Tennessee, who put a sign up that said no gays allowed. Now, I myself am not gay. But I don't care who screws who where. This has been well established on this channel. Live and let live. Do what it is that makes you feel good. We'll all answer for it in the end. And I don't care what goes on in your bedroom. But as far as, and this ties into the ESG side of things, because that kind of behavior wouldn't be allowed under the ESG standards. In fact, that hardware store would have to be bought out by a bigger global company because they're too taboo to be out there. Whereas in the free market, yeah, you're going to get your niche group of cousin screwers, especially down in rural Tennessee, who are going to come out and say, yeah, I think that there's a great idea and we should be going out there and supporting this here hardware store. But what are you going to get for new business? There are a lot of people who are going to look at a sign like that and say, oh, this is distasteful. I don't want to go here. This is a small town thing. I'll go to Ace. That's the free market at work that's doing on the outside what these guys are trying to do on the inside. Trust me. Mr. Hardware Store owner who has a sign up that says no gays allowed can only take so much money from all of his buddies before they themselves start running out of money. New business? Good luck. But let's read into this one from Fortune. Larry Fink is caught in the middle of a heated climate change debate. The CEO of BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, has become a lightning rod for criticism from conservatives due to his push for environmental, social, and corporate governance. Investing over the past few years, ESG investing is a way of applying non-financial factors, like climate change initiatives or diversity, equity, and inclusion programs to the analysis of investments. Critics on the left have always viewed Fink's ESG stance with skepticism as well, with some arguing the whole ESG industry is a market tactic or outright destructive. It's like giving wheatgrass to cancer patients, Tariq Fancy, BlackRock's former chief investment officer for sustainable investing, told Financial Times in 2021. Davos on Tuesday, Fink said he is now trying to address the misconceptions about his company's policies, and something bad has happened to the discourse along the way. It's hard because it's not business anymore. They're doing it a personal way, he told Bloomberg, and for the first time in my professional career, attacks are now personal. They're trying to demonize issues. Well, it's because your issues don't work. Fink was first linked with ESG investing back in 2020 when he warned that climate change was fundamentally reshaping finance in his annual letter to CEOs, arguing that executives needed to reallocate their capital into sustainable strategies. The stance drew the ire of a coalition of over 75 conservative leaders and elected officials who signed a letter to the CEO asking him to reconsider the announcement. Then last year, the situation was made worse when Fink's annual letter to CEOs echoed his past statements about sustainability and added a new note about stakeholder capitalism, a policy of serving not only shareholders but also employees, customers, and the public. Critics began to call it woke capitalism. Louisiana State Treasurer John Schroeder divested nearly $800 million in taxpayer funds from BlackRock in October due to Fink's ESG stance. And in December, Florida's Chief Financial Officer Jimmy Patronis chose to divest $2 billion of the state's funds. Whether stakeholder capitalism or ESG standards are being pushed by BlackRock for ideological reasons or to develop a social credit rating, which is what they're doing, the effect is to avoid dealing with the messiness of democracy, Patronis said in a statement announcing the move. Yeah, BlackRock, by the way, which has lost about $4 billion of flows from various states due to its ESG stance last year, they're getting it from both sides. And that's trouble, typically, when you're going into something like this. They lost, looks like, almost $1.5 trillion in assets. But yet, you've got your socialist leftoids who love a planned economy, but are looking at this and saying, no, this is just another way for the corrupt billionaires to go back out and advertise and say that we're friendly, buy from us. And they give credit to leftoids. They see right through this crap. Because they're also starting to see through the annual rainbow push in June every year. When these companies suddenly care so much about the gay community. When in reality it's just a way to come back out and say, yes, we support your community, come buy from us. And then on July 1st, the rainbow is gone. Because they don't actually care about any of this, they just want people to come back out and buy more from them. And that's the same thing as what this is. Buy from me, don't buy from that small business rube out there because I have a good ESG score. Meanwhile, the free marketers out there are looking at this and saying, well, this is a way for them to prop themselves up and for the world to go back and force its standards on every business, and we don't want them. Get your hands out of our business. We will figure out how to do it for ourselves. And I got one from the Daily Wire here. BlackRock's Larry Fink says ESG opponents are trying to demonize the movement after Elon Musk calls it satanic. So this will be shorty here because I just want to talk about the Elon Musk connection. From Ben Ziesloft. Larry Fink denounced criticism of the ESG movement and expressed skepticism towards supply chain resiliency efforts at the WEF. During an interview on Tuesday in Davos, the asset management company executive remarked that disputes concerning ESG investing have created significant controversy. I'm taking this very seriously, he told Ron Helton's favorite publication from his favorite politician, Bloomberg News. We're trying to address the misconceptions. It's hard because it's not business anymore. They're doing it in a personal way, and for the first time in my professional career, attacks are not personal. They're trying to demonize the issue. The reference to critics' attempts to demonize the ESG movement comes days after Elon Musk quipped on social media that the S in ESG stands for satanic. And it stands for social, but I mean, what's the difference at this point? The billionaire entrepreneur formerly called the philosophy a scam that has been weaponized by phony social justice warriors. Yeah, probably. Well, good on Elon for that. I'll call balls and strikes with him. When he does something tremendously stupid, I'll tell the world about it. But when he hits one out of the park, like this, Good on him. DeSantis targeting this from News Channel 8 On Your Side out of Tampa. DeSantis targets ESG agenda with new rules for state money managers from Sam Sachs. Building on steps taken last year, Ron DeSantis and the State Board of Administration, or SBA, approved guidelines that would bar state-run fund managers from considering woke environmental, social, or governance, or ESG issues when making decisions about investments. The Florida SBA dictates how the state's hundreds of billions in retirement assets and other funds are managed and invested. The SBA is governed by a 3-person board of trustees: DeSantis, Chief Financial Officer Jimmy Patronis, and AG Ashley Moody. During the upcoming legislative session, DeSantis said he will propose a bill that will lay out requirements on how fund managers should make investment decisions to ensure ESG policies are not considered. ESG has been embraced by top corporations. In recent years, it refers to a set of standards used by investors to screen companies for risk, saying how they handle issues like climate change, office relationships, and shareholder rights. So, good. And of course, the state should be considering who is going to be profitable and who isn't, to an extent. But also, especially if there's going to be grants or handouts involved. But realistically, it should be up to the market to decide who rises and who falls. I do still stand against the fact that DeSantis and a board will be making some decisions like that. But at least they're trying to keep ESG back out of it. A little bit of news on the crypto side. Yeah, I can't figure out how to stream to Odyssey. I've tried. I gotta reach out to PJ Patriot actually, because he said he was going to show me, and that was about the same time I got the new job. So trying to figure this out in the midst of a move was just not happening. I'm not opposed to streaming on Odyssey. It's just because it's not safe. Restream doesn't want to go to it. And Restream might go down the road too, by the way. I mean, I've been a little bit disappointed with them since they put the Ukrainian flag on the front of their website, but I don't know what else goes out to every single platform at the same time and allows cross chat. If there's another option, I'll take it. I absolutely will. Because I think we can pull a bigger audience if we go to Odyssey. Obviously, DLive brings us some audience in, but go to Odyssey and Rumble, which I've actually got to fix my debt with Rumble, because I still haven't fixed the credit card thing with them. A Russian cryptocurrency owner arrested in Miami for allegedly transmitting over $700 million in illicit funds. From Anna Wilder. So we're getting out to the point where crypto's starting to come back, and the government still wants to make its own crypto. And now we have, yet another story of crypto being used for shady stuff. While there's a ledger on millions of computers. Authorities in Miami arrested the majority owner and founder of a global crypto exchange on Tuesday evening after he allegedly helped process more than $700 million in illicit funds, according to the Justice Department. Anatoly Lekodimov, 40, a Russian national who resides in China, was charged with conducting an unlicensed money transmitting business. Bitslato Ltd. He's expected to be arraigned Wednesday in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida. The DOJ stated that Bitslato is a Hong Kong registered crypto exchange that had minimal ID requirements, ultimately resulting in an environment where criminal proceeds could occur. Users did not have to take photos of themselves or provide a passport for self-identification. As it should be, by the way. The company frequently did transactions with its counterpart, Hydra Markets. A large darknet marketplace, Hydra, was shut down in April 2022 after it was accused of selling drugs, hacking services, and personal information. The DOJ also accused the company and Lekodimov of failing to provide anti-money laundering safeguards, enabling criminals to profit off wrongdoing, including drug trafficking and ransomware, which again they're doing on with a currency whose ledger is stored on multiple computers. It's kind of hard to deny that when anybody in the blockchain can get subpoenaed and get scared. You know, I'd rather just use cash if I'm going to do something illegal. Still. Today's actions send a clear message. Whether you break our laws from China or Europe or abuse our financial system from a tropical island, you can expect to answer for your crimes inside a U.S. courtroom, said Deputy AG Lisa Monaco in a statement. Oh, you shouldn't expect that. Members of our government and their big business donors do it all the time. But this guy's a Russian, you see. And conveniently timed, when crypto was starting to poke its head up a little bit again. I don't know, I call crap on this one. Let's grab one from CNN. The US will likely reach its debt limit on Thursday. What comes next is predictable. Op-ed from Zachary B. Wolf. The US has been in debt and arguing about it for its entire existence. The only 2 years in US history when there was no debt came as then President Andrew Jackson was blowing up the banking system and immediately preceded the Panic of 1837 and a major depression. In recent decades, disagreements over raising the debt ceiling, the maximum amount of money the Treasury is authorized to borrow to pay its bills, has grown along with the size of the national debt. The country will likely reach its debt limit, which currently stands at $31.4 trillion on Thursday. There's no denying the size of the debt is alarming. Then stop trying to raise it! And not just because 31 trillion plus is an eye-popping figure. Economists like to assess the debt as a percentage of the GDP, or GDP, the broadest measure of the U.S. economy. After the pandemic recovery spending, the debt is about 120% of the GDP, according to government figures. And that's because we've had two major shrinks since the beginning of the pandemic in the GDP. That's historically high, higher than after World War II, but whether it's a problem is a subject of much debate. No, it's a problem. There's no debate about that. So-called extraordinary measures, the Treasury Department's equivalent of moving money around to make interest payments, will give Congress and President Biden until approximately June to come to an agreement on how to raise the debt ceiling. While there are clues of how the showdown will play out politically from other recent debt standoffs, there's also reason to believe that this time could be different. A larger portion of GOP lawmakers seem willing to allow the country to default, and Biden seems unlikely to enact the kinds of spending cuts that would satisfy them. No, he's unlikely to enact any spending cut whatsoever. None. Zero. He won't move. The Republicans involved in this are at least coming and saying, yes, I want to balance out the budget and eliminate the national debt, but I'm willing to come to the table and talk. Biden's people, because Biden himself is not saying this, are just saying, no, screw you, keep spending. So, and a lot of this is going to be fear porn to try to scare the voters into punishing Republicans at the ballot box over something, and again, something we don't know what's going to do. They can give you doomsday, worst case scenarios left and right. And of course, the first thing that they're going to go back and cut is Medicare and Social Security because, look, the evil Republicans are holding the olds hostage. When, as I mentioned, for the last 3 days, there are billions of dollars wrapped up in other programs that we could eliminate long before we ever have to go to Social Security and Medicare. And here is some of the fear porn itself. ABC News with a video. Republican lawmakers refuse to raise debt ceiling as U.S. nears cap. Let's listen to some of this. We won't go to the full 5, obviously.
Saying that the U.S. will hit a cap on how much money it can actually borrow as soon as tomorrow. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says that she can use extraordinary measures to pay the bills, but only until June.
So Republicans are remaining steadfast. They are not going to budge, they say, in their refusal to raise the debt ceiling unless Congress and the White House agree to deep spending cuts that the Republicans want. ABC News' Elizabeth Schulze and ABC News business reporter Alexis Christoforous join us now with more. So, Elizabeth, Republicans, you know, this is their Alamo right now. They have decided to make this the battle of their new power in the House of Representatives. They want the White House to agree to spending cuts that really have nothing to do with the debt ceiling. Can you explain why and what they're trying to do here?
Right, Terry. So the debt limit has to do with the government's bills that it already owes. And Republicans are talking about spending cuts for future budgets. So these really are kind of different topics. But think about the debt limit this way. It's $31.4 trillion. The government borrows money to finance its operations in the same way that you or I might borrow money using a credit card to buy things. We have a limit on that credit card. The government has a limit on how much money it can borrow. And ultimately, that limit continues to get raised. But at a certain point, if that limit isn't raised, there's a risk that the government could default on its debt. And that's what the Treasury Secretary is now warning about, saying that we're getting close to that $31.4 trillion number, that these extraordinary steps are going to be taken over the next couple of months to basically buy some time for Congress to try to reach a deal so that they can raise that limit, suspend that limit, get rid of it, something so that the government can keep paying the bills that it already owes. But you're right, this is a very different story than it comes down to the future budgets, the future spending of the government. That's a different process.
So Congress passed the $1.7 trillion spending bill last month, Elizabeth, avoiding that government shutdown. So let's just talk about the difference between the two here.
Right. So that is the government's budget. When we think about the things that the government spends its money on, it's Social Security, it's Medicare, military salaries, it pays tax refunds. This is a ginormous chunk of the U.S. economy. And basically, every year the Congress passes a budget, and that's where they could.
Okay, I have a really hard time taking a journalist seriously who says the word ginormous on a national platform.
Negotiate spending cuts or changes to taxes. You know, at the end of the day, the government does not bring in enough revenue through taxes to make up for how much money it owes. So that's why it runs a deficit. That's why we see this big debt number, guys.
All right, Alexis, that's politics. It's Republicans and Democrats. Republicans have voted 3 times during the presidency of Donald Trump to raise the debt ceiling. They don't want to now. But how concerned should ordinary Americans, consumers, investors be right now about this standoff?
Well, people definitely want to be aware of what's going on, but I don't think it's time to panic. I mean, we heard Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen say she would take these, quote, extraordinary measures to make sure that the government can continue to pay its bills until at least June. So we're not near the possibility of, you know, going over the debt limit cliff, if you will, right now. But if that were to happen, economists use the word catastrophic, and I don't think that that's a stretch here. I mean, we could see the stock market plunge. We could see the government stopping payments for things like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, the food program. The government will have to make very hard decisions. Who do they pay? Who do they pay first? Bondholders, those who hold Treasury debt right now? Do they pay people on Social Security or federal workers? Also, you know, a note on bonds. A lot of Americans hold bonds, Treasury debt, and if the government defaults on that debt and doesn't pay those investors in a timely way or at all, lots of luck finding people who want to invest in the government going forward, or they're going.
I told you bonds were a bad idea right now. They're not necessarily always a bad idea, but they're a bad idea right now. And I do get it that a lot of these people bought these bonds that they're talking about currently when they weren't a bad idea. But yeah, you couldn't raise the Treasury yield high enough to get me to buy a bond right now. I'll tell you that right off the bat. You couldn't raise that Treasury yield anywhere close to high enough to get me to buy a bond. But again, it's all a lot of fear. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I don't think that Democrats have the sack to let this I think they are. It's going to be hard to see who blinks first. I was saying I think the Democrats are going to blink first, but then I remember how many neoconservative WEF type Republicans are out there in Congress who will find a way around and work a deal that way. But we might actually get a showdown off of this one. We might actually be seeing who blinks first. There is a possibility this time. This one isn't video, this is audio, but a little bit of NPR. We're not going to go too long off this one. But a political standoff over the debt ceiling could harm the U.S. economy. You know what? I'm not going to do this one. I'm not going to do this one from NPR just because we got all of our fear porn from ABC. So, the debt ceiling is still a contentious fight. Now, the mainstreams, by the way, are not talking about this, and neither is Conservative Incorporated. I do have to go and start digging to find more stuff on the debt ceiling. It seems like the public has forgotten about this. And probably will until tomorrow when it's officially hit. Because now they can come back and run campaigns on it again, but we'll see what happens with that. Let's talk about Derek Chauvin. Court asked to void verdict against ex-cop in Floyd's murder. From Steve Karnowski. An attorney for Derek Chauvin asked an appeals court Wednesday to throw out the former Minneapolis police officer's convictions in the murder of George Floyd, arguing the legal and procedural errors deprived him of a fair trial. Well, yeah, and again, the jurors having to go through the protests robbed him of a fair trial. I'm sorry. Having to see all these protests and people threatening to burn down the jurors' neighborhoods every day, that in and of itself deprived Chauvin of a fair trial. Floyd died on May 25, 2020, after Chauvin, who is white, because that's important to the Associated Press, pinned the black man to the ground with his knee on the neck for 9.5 minutes. That has never been proven. A bystander video captured Floyd's fading cries of, "I can't breathe!" Floyd's death touched off protests around the world and forced a national reckoning with police brutality and racism. But somehow that wasn't an insurrection. Chauvin's attorney, William Moorman, told the 3-judge panel of the Minnesota Court of Appeals that the trial judge should have moved the case out of Minneapolis. Yeah, that right there. Because of extensive pretrial publicity and unprecedented security precautions due to protest fears. And of course, the fact that they couldn't be sequestered. And I want to back up and talk about the what I talked about before with all of the jurors having to go through the protests, because the protest zone was right outside the courthouse for a reason. And the problem with that, the issue with all of this is the fact that in any other situation in the world ever, if a protest zone had started forming outside of the courthouse, every single one of these jurors would have been sequestered and not left the courthouse. They have barracks in a courthouse for this express situation. When a juror's life is thought that they could be in danger for giving the wrong verdict. or they could be intimidated or threatened for giving the wrong verdict. It would have been very, very easy, except for the fact that we were in the middle of the pinko pox. And we can't have these people. We can't have them staying here. They might be carriers. They might give everybody else the pox. We might have to quarantine the courthouse. But Neil Katyal, a special attorney for the state, said Chauvin got one of the most transparent and thorough trials in the nation's history. Chauvin's many arguments before the court do not come close to justifying reversal. The protest zone outside the courthouse should be enough for the reversal. Peter Cahill, the judge in the case, sentenced Chauvin to 22.5 years after jurors found him guilty of second-degree murder and third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter, which again, remember, means that he both intentionally and unintentionally killed Floyd at the same time. Second-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter cannot exist simultaneously to each other. Chauvin later pleaded guilty to a separate federal civil rights charge and was sentenced to 21 years, which he's now serving in Arizona concurrent with his state sentence. Judge Cahill managed this trial with enormous care, and even if Chauvin could identify some minor fault, any error is harmless. Katyal said the evidence of Chauvin's guilt was captured on video for the world to see. Appeals Judge Reyes said Wednesday the court would rule within 90 days. Chauvin did not attend the oral arguments, but Minnesota AG Keith Ellison, who assembled the prosecution team, sat in the front row. Well, of course he did. Even if Chauvin wins his appeal, his federal sentence will keep him in prison longer than his state sentence, likely because he would qualify for parole earlier in the system. Mike Brandt, a Minneapolis defense attorney who's been following the case arising from Floyd's murder, said a victory at appeal would be functionally meaningless and that Chauvin's time in prison is pretty well locked in stone given his federal sentence. I don't know, because that would set up an appeal for a pressure campaign over what he got. But I'm interested. We'll see what happens with that. Some more bills coming out of the House that aren't going to go anywhere but show where the priorities are. From Fox News, GOP moves to protect Mount Rushmore. From activists looking to rename it or tear it down. From Peter Kasperowicz. House Republicans this week proposed legislation aimed at protecting Mount Rushmore from being altered, renamed, or demolished by activists who say the monument disrespects Native Americans. The Mount Rushmore Protection Act would prohibit the use of federal funds to change or destroy or rename the Mount Rushmore National Memorial. The bill from Dusty Johnson is a response to criticism that has grown since former President Trump visited the site in 2020. Our nation's history is not without flaws, but there's no doubt the faces on Mount Rushmore represent democracy, freedom, and the great American experiment. Not really. You have Abraham Lincoln on there. Removing or changing Mount Rushmore will not change the past and will not move us forward as a country. We must protect Mount Rushmore for generations to come. By the way, if you guys haven't checked out Razorfist's video rebutting the legacy of Abraham Lincoln, you should. It's an hour long, so set yourself out a little bit of time, but it's really good. Opposition to the famous memorial was stoked after Trump's visit, which led to complaints from Native Americans that the monument is built on sacred land in the Black Hills that was taken from them once gold was discovered. One citizen of a South Dakota tribe told Voice of America in 2020 that Mount Rushmore is a symbol of ethnic cleansing, forced assimilation, and the theft of our territory, and that Trump's visit was a reminder of the continuing genocide of our people. Didn't you sell that property? Also last year, former NBA player Jalen Rose called on the people to retire the term Mount Rushmore because the monument sits on land that was stolen when it was discovered that it contained gold. You're sensing a pattern here. Johnson's bill finds that memorial is America's shrine of democracy. Not really. And combines the images of former presidents Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln with the beauty of the Black Hills of South Dakota. Aside from barring any changes to the memorial, the bill would also require that any reference to the site on maps and other documents must refer to Mount Rushmore. Yeah, this is really where we're going right now. Republicans supporting the bill so far are Michael Guest of Mississippi, Alex Mooney of West Virginia, Doug LaMalfa of California, Jim Banks of Indiana, Nancy Mace of South Carolina, Chris Stewart of Utah, Troy Nelson of Texas, Claudia Tenney of New York, and Alma Amata Coleman Radowagon, the delegate from American Samoa. Not going to go anywhere. Good idea, but not going to go anywhere. Biden is at it again, now suing to try to keep the mask mandate back on the planes. From the New York Post. The Biden admin argues that CDC has the right to require travelers to mask up in appeals court. No, the airline does. The CDC doesn't. From Ellie Griffin. The Biden admin is appealing a federal judge's ruling that the government didn't have the right to impose a federal mask mandate on public transportation during the pandemic. The Justice Department on Tuesday argued that Centers for Disease Control and Prevention had the legal authority to require travelers to wear masks on planes, trains, and buses to stop the spread of the pink pox in the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, the Washington Examiner reported. The appeal comes 9 months after a Florida judge struck down a federal mask mandate, ruling the CDC failed to follow the proper rulemaking procedures. Here's a question. Why don't we legislate this? A lawyer for the plaintiffs in the original lawsuit, including the Health Freedom Defense Fund, says the Justice Department's decision to wait to appeal shows a lack of urgency in the matter. The appeal is not about an urgent matter of public health. If the mask order had been such an urgent matter of public health, you would have been expected the CDC to have applied for a stay to the district court's ruling, an attorney representing the Health Freedom Defense Fund said, according to the Examiner. Yeah, they're going to try. Now, legally, yes, in a situation like this, if there is a rule in place, the CDC would have the ability to work in Congress with the Department of Transportation in order to, yes, make this happen. But constitutionally, there would still have to be a law that was passed by Congress to get this done. I don't think this is going anywhere, you guys. Got some news about Token Diversity Hire here. Token Diversity Hire snaps at reporters. It's not your decision to make on what I can and can't answer. From Daily Wire News. White House Press Secretary Token Diversity Hire snapped at reporters during Wednesday's press briefing over repeated questions about Biden's classified document scandal. Let's listen. I'm just going to do the one this time.
Go ahead. Sorry, but on questions that you should be able to answer here that shouldn't have to go to any other agency or entity, can you tell us if there's any sort of assessment that has been planned or launched to determine if national security has been jeopardized at all?
Again, that's for the Department of Justice.
Why is it a DOJ question?
And let's be clear, it's not your decision to make on what I can or can't answer from here.
Oof. The claws are out on that one. We'll do a couple more. It's really not your decision either, by the way, but, you know, the most transparent administration in history, right? That's what they keep trying to tell us.
Thank you, Claire. Since so many of our questions have been referred to the DOJ and to the White House counsel's office, I'm sure you can understand that we're in sort of an information blackout where DOJ refers us to the special counsel. They're not holding any briefings. White House counsel refers us to DOJ. So if you are not able to talk about this from the podium, would you invite a DOJ official to take our questions here to the briefing?
No, you would have to go to the Department of Justice. That is not, this is a legal matter that is currently happening at the Department of Justice. And the president has been very, very clear when it comes to these types of legal matters, when it comes to investigations, he's not going to interfere. He wants to make sure that we give back the independence that the Department of Justice should have when it comes to these types of investigations. So certainly would not be bringing them here. So I would refer you to the Department of Justice.
Why not? That's the perfect opportunity to display all the transparency you say that you have. And again, we're not going to go this one because it's the same thing. Just go talk to the White House counsel's office. Don't talk to me. Yeah, this is a serious press secretary. Let's talk Greta. Thank you to Grant for providing this video for me. The fake arrest of Greta Thunberg was all set up for the cameras, and I've got a Daily Wire article to go with this.
You also want those pretty man? Wie sieht's denn aus mit der Badstraße? Was mit der?
That's how most of our politics is at this point. That's how the vast majority of it is at this point. It's just nothing but a big stage show. It's a big club and you're not in it. From the Daily Wire. New video of Greta Thunberg's detention sparks an allegation of a staged incident. From Ryan Saavedra. New video that showed law enforcement officials detaining far-left climate activist Greta Thunberg this week at an anti-energy protest in Europe sparked allegations the entire situation was staged for the media. The 20-year-old and her cohorts were protesting the planned demolition of a coal mining town in Lützerath in western Germany to make way for an expanded coal mining operation. The demonstration comes as the continent deals with an energy crisis sparked by Russia's war in Ukraine. No, that's not true either, Ben. Thunberg was initially seen smiling as German police picked her up and carried her away. However, a video later emerged that showed the moments before Thunberg was carried off by police. The footage showed the police effectively allowing the media to take pictures and film Thunberg before they removed her from the area. Several major Twitter accounts claimed that the situation looked staged for the media. Well, that's because it was. I said most likely yesterday, and now that I've seen the video, I will say confirmed. Alright, just a couple more, then we will do my annual appeal to what I am most thankful for, what restores my faith in humanity, and head out of here for the day. This is just stupid. This is just stupid, you guys. From the Blaze, hardcover January 6th committee reports, signed by Kinzinger, are available for $100. Yeah, this is a real thing, you guys. From Alex Nitzberg, Country First is offering hardbound copies of the January 6th committee's report, signed by former Rep. Adam Kinzinger. The books are available for $100 each. All proceeds will benefit charitable organizations working to uphold and defend democracy in America, the listing says. Oh, so it's a political gift, too, on top of that. Kinzinger, who describes himself on Twitter as the founder of Country First, served in the House for more than a decade before departing office earlier this month. He has become a CNN senior political commentator. According to Country First, a Twitter profile, the group is a movement for those who feel politically homeless in the failed politics of today and want to bring truth and accountability back to government. Kinzinger was one of the 2 GOP lawmakers who served on the House Unselect Committee to investigate the January 6th Selfie Fest. The other, neocon Cheney, who finished her term earlier this month after losing the primary last year to Trump-backed candidate Harriet Hageman, who went on to win the general election and is now a member of Congress. Country First backed multiple candidates during the 2022 elections, including Katie Hobbs and Lisa Murkowski. This is a PAC. This is not a charity. And by the way, this really needs to be looked into for taxation, because if they're registering it as a nonprofit charity, then they have to operate under different tax codes, different rules, different laws than the PAC that it apparently is. So, I know the FBI is not going to do anything, but FBI, let's have a look at these guys. I know my FBI agent is watching because he watches every time I go live. I do have my own FBI agent. So, Scott, go look into this. Leave me alone for a little while and go look into this. Alright, and the last one, which is incredibly based. Gates introduces the Abolish the ATF Act after ruling against stabilizing braces. From Jessica Chasmar. Matt Gaetz introduced a bill to eliminate the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, following a controversial ruling that tightens regulations on pistol stabilizing braces. The ATF issued its final rule on Friday that will treat guns with stabilizing accessories like short-barreled rifles, which require a federal license to own under the National Firearms Act. Garland says the ruling enhances public safety, but Gates said it unfairly punishes the disabled gun owners and veterans who rely on stabilizing braces to be able to fire with one hand. Gates introduced the H.R. 374, the Abolish the ATF Act, Tuesday morning in response to the ruling, telling Fox News Digital it was the final straw. I have a lot of disabled veterans in my district who enjoy pistol shooting and rely on stabilizing braces to engage in the activity, he said in a phone interview Wednesday morning. The recent actions from the ATF essentially allow them to make a case-by-case determinations on whether a pistol with a stabilizing brace is legal or unlawful sawed-off shotgun. The continued existence of the ATF is increasingly unwarranted based on the actions they're taking to convert otherwise law-abiding people into felons. He said, "My bill would abolish the ATF, and if that doesn't work, we're going to try defunding the ATF. If that doesn't work, we're going to target the individual bureaucrats at the top of the ATF who have exceeded their authority in rulemaking, and if that doesn't work, we're going to take a meat cleaver to the statutes that the ATF believes broadly authorize their actions." And unfortunately, the problem is, as based as this is, as much as I support this, none of these things are going to work. Yes, you'll be able to obstruct new things from coming down the pipes, from being forced into it, but honestly, none of this is going anywhere with a Democrat-led Senate. So, I like seeing this kind of stuff. My biggest curiosity is if there is a possibility of a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate. And also, the possibility of it getting past the White House, would they still be doing this kind of stuff? Because I don't think that they would. But that's just how I revere politicians. Alright. Let's finish out the show basically where I started. Talking a bit about what Crowder talked about in the beginning. Now, in spite of my inability to completely trust Steven Crowder, for the person that he is, for the origins that he came from, and what he did in the past, where he worked with Shapiro, who I think most of us know, I believe, is one of the people he was discussing. I do not entirely trust the Steven Crowder video. I don't trust the plan that he has. Yes, I will be reaching out to creators at mugclub.com. I want to see what his pitch is before I decide whether or not it's bullshit. Whether it's real, whether it's bullshit, or whether or not it's something that he's just coming out to try to grift, to try to make a semi-competing company to the Daily Wire. Whom he's probably going to remain being friends with, by the way. Remember, Crowder was probably one of the first, I don't think he was the first, but he was one of the first guests on the Sunday special for Shapiro. But the widespread that came out of this is still something that makes me thankful. We do need, as creators, and fans of creators too, by the way, you guys play a role in this too. Everybody who's watching this video to the end, play a role in this as well, trying to bring us all together, get us interviews with each other, get us on each other's programs, and grow us all. You all play a role in this because big media, Conservative Incorporated, is in bed with big tech and big media. The Daily Wire is just one step removed from being Fox News. And in fact, Ben himself goes on Fox News often. He had a regular show there for a while. This is still, even if you're looking at all the independent content creation, this is still a big club and you're not in it. And people are starting to see that. I kind of wonder how many people are going to come up to this. And again, I'm willing to hear Steven out. I take it with a grain of salt, of course, because of where he came from, but I'm willing to hear Steven out. I know some of my friends are not willing to extend that grace, but after the video, I'm willing to hear him out. Maybe we can get some advertising, maybe some things are going to help up and get me a better reach, and maybe get you guys some more people to argue with. I'll reach out to us. I actually... And I'm addressing the chat, which I don't usually do during the program. But essentially, with PJ, I did, before he started Hawkhound Media, that's the reason I stopped promoting Katie's, because she's part of Hawkhound Media. And, you know, I don't want to snipe one of their creators. But actually, I was going to invite PJ, before I ever heard about Hawkhound Media, to Turn Some Pages Productions. I wanted him to be a part of that. That's why you guys remember, before I moved, I was promoting them. And even after I moved, I was promoting them. But even still, like, and I know that Ortner's project never got off the ground either. That stayed dead in the planning books. But even having some concurrent side projects together, two companies, like I would work side by side with Hawkhound, absolutely. If they pick me up, I'd at least hear them out. I don't know if... The only problem that I have with going to Hawkhound is I don't know if I want to do something where I'm not on the top. Because I've got a really good lawyer who's got a really good legal team behind her already. And I don't know if I want to work for somebody else on something like this. The sponsorships would be cool, but it'd be something I'd hear out. But still, getting some of these smaller competitors... The entire thing that I'm going with the fact that we're talking about this again, with what Crowder did, is the fact that there is a recognition that even the mainstreamers, the missing link media types, are really out there to build a certain kind of show to show that conservative media can only be one way. And to hell with the rest of you. The rest of you who are trying to do it a different way, you're never going to make it, so don't even bother trying. Whereas we have people like myself, like Stephen Ignoramus, like Christensen, even though Christensen and I are at odds with each other. But I still support his work and what he does. I don't watch it, but I will never ever discourage anybody else from watching it. Because we can make something like that work. It's not for everybody. Obviously, we saw from the chat that Mr. Scott couldn't handle all the lo-fi and the negative news. But, I mean, we've got the culture. That's why I have the Porch Boys working with me at the same time, because they do take bigger topics and take them in a different cultural direction that my specific news program doesn't go in. But again, we all recognize the fact that the old school mentality didn't work. It doesn't work. And I hope that some more competitors rise up and more of us can form coalitions and come together and build a better media experience. That's my dream, is a better news and media experience from people who don't wear suits that cost more than your house, or probably wear suits that cost more than the building that I live in this tiny ass closet that I live in here. But with that, yes, I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for the recognition. I'm thankful for the thought that's out there, that all the conservative media out there that's getting mysteriously doesn't get banned off anything. It's all part of the same group. They're priority creators. They get moved ahead of all the rest of us, just like everybody else. They can't be trusted, and it is still a big club, and you're not in it. And with that, we're out of here for the day. So, thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat, everybody who came through. And yes, even if it's not your cup of tea, you're still here. You gave me the view. You got me some messages going out. So, YouTube is forced to recognize us as something promotable. So, I'm thankful for that as well. We'll be back here tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday, so we'll go over things that I like and things that I hate, which, by the way, is already full. So, we'll be talking more about that. Definitely. But come back and join me here tomorrow as we go through some of that. Hopefully we'll have some brighter news, especially with the show up in case going through, and some other things that are starting to happen as well. I did see a couple other news stories that were developing as we were on air while we were watching videos, so looking forward to that. And as always, if you see news articles that you want, and yes, this is for you as well, Mr. Scott, if you see articles that you want to see, the Discord is the place to go. I can't get to all of them because our government behaves stupidly. Very stupidly, and that does take up the majority of my time, but I always do try to at least look into the articles you guys bring me, and if there's big news there, I go to it. And with that, we're out of here for the day. Take care. If you're on Twitch, stick around. We will go find somebody to raid. Otherwise, we will see you here tomorrow, 6 p.m. Central Time, for more news, more headlines, more political analysis, and of course, more contemporary. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.